So it's great for me to see them loose because then I can see what they naturally prefer to do. So she has a nice walk right there. That's her trail walk. Then she immediately tightens up around her neck and spine and goes to pacing and shortens her stride way up. Then she lengthens it there. Then she goes back to pacing. There it's not as bad. There she's like, what are we doing, Mom? But it's helpful so I can see what she's able to do and what she tends to do. So she looks like she's going to have a nice walk with her legs separated, but if we don't teach her, then she's going to go to pacing. And if she has any tension, either from riding or being anxious or the saddle not fitting, she's going to go to pacing. So I can tell a lot from just watching them loose, but right there, she's very good. Okay, so here you're running him loose so I can see what he's doing, and it's the same thing as you showed in the outdoor video. Some of the time he has his legs separated, but that's only when he's going slow. Like right there, he's very good, very separated, so we know what he can do, and then he immediately goes to pacing, which many do because it's easy. They just tense up and swing their legs. But at least I can see, at least in this video loose, he just paces, he doesn't trot, but he does have a good stride when he's relaxed and not going faster. So each horse has their preference on what they do and what's easiest. Some of the time he hits a little saddle gait and a little step pace, but at least in these videos, he is not on the trotty side. The other thing I want to mention, and I could see this when he was moving around, but maybe it's the footing, but it looked like this in all the videos, is that he's built a little downhill. So his hip is higher. And the importance of that is that as we lower his head and get him to relax, which will help separate his legs, we have to be careful that he doesn't get heavy on his front end. So this isn't a horse that would want to be out riding on the trail with his head way down below his knees or too relaxed. Because when they're built like this and they're on the pacey side, if they trip, they're more likely, because they have more weight on that front end, to fall forward. So with him, it's going to be important that you work on engagement, getting his weight on his back end. And once we get him gaiting well, like this headset is fine, or a little bit higher if he was getting heavy on your hands. So it'll be really important to work on engaging his back end and getting him to drive off that back end just because he's built downhill. But he's a very cute horse. Okay, now this is your video of him going over poles, and he did pretty well. There you were just switching hands. So the things that I would change is just, it's okay, and you have to actually speed him up in front of the poles. But after the poles, if he's pacing, I would bring him back to a walk. So you sped him up, he paced, that's okay. Now as he goes through the poles here, you need to keep waving your whip to increase the energy. So you can wave the whip, you can cluck, you can jump up and down, you can do anything you need to. You just have to keep the energy, because for horses, you know, he doesn't understand why we're doing the poles. So first I make sure they know how to get through them. So I always walk them over it first, and I do that a bunch of times. And then once I'm sure they understand to pick up their feet and how to get through it, then I ask them to go faster. But they are always, especially the smart ones, gonna go for the other option, that if they can go slower through it and make it easier on them, that's what they're gonna do, because he doesn't know you don't want him to pace. So I would increase your energy as he's going through there. I would have waved my whip. I would have clucked or kissed to try to keep him going through it. And then I would slow him all the way back down to a walk, because he's still pacing there. So we want to make sure he knows that's not what we want. So there you have to increase your energy to keep him going through those poles. And then here he was better, and then he sped back up. So we don't want him pacing anywhere except right in front of those poles. So he knows that's not what we want. And the hard part is you have to keep steering and directing with that whip. And I kind of keep that whip out in front of you, like directly out in front of you. because you're kind of using that whip as your leg. So you want it to keep him out. You also want to wiggle it to keep him going, and you can use it to bend if you point it towards that stirrup as you're going around that circle. So you can get a lot done. So it's fine to bring it behind him to make him go, but wave it so he keeps going, because he's not getting the full benefit of those trotting poles because he keeps slowing down through it. Now, when you go to change directions, what works better than just holding this whip out, because a lot of times they don't understand, is pull hard enough on that rope so he knows which direction to go, and then wave that stick. I always tell people karate chop. So wave towards the corner of their neck like this, and you'll see it in all of my lunging videos, because that drives their front end out so they understand. But sometimes you see you're waving it, but it's not at him. Wave it directly at the corner of his neck or his shoulder blade, but he's confused. And so they also see different than us as well. So sometimes you really got to pull them over and take a little step over to your right, and then karate chop it towards the side of his neck so he understands. There I would have pulled a lot harder, quicker, because the quicker you respond, the more they understand that's not what you want, instead of going as slow and just letting them figure it out. So again, if you've been doing this, you're trying to finish your lunging so you can magically do it without doing much, but he seems that he is still confused. Now that was pretty good besides the tripping, and they can do that, so that's okay. And then bring him back to the walk, put your stick out in front of you, pull his head in a little bit to get him to bend, because bending is going to help a lot on breaking up the pace. So while you're doing these trotting circles, you also want to bend him around this circle, get him to come back to the walk by just wiggling the rope or relaxing your energy. Then keep that stick kind of out in front of you to keep pushing him out towards the poles. Like right there, it's down. So you want to point it out so he doesn't have the option to cut the poles, because the smart horses, they cut the poles, because why go over the poles when you don't have to? And then wave the stick to create the energy. And then here you're going to fix the pole. You're going to send him back out here. So I would have backed him up a little bit when he came forward, and then that would allow you to pull on the rope and direct him better, and then kind of karate chop towards his neck. But there, he's confused, and again, he doesn't see like you do. So he's losing visual of you at certain points in time. And I wouldn't let him come in that close, because if something spooked him at that point, he could jump sideways and jump right on your feet. So you really want to keep him out of your space as you're making those turns. So that's just finishing him more in his lunging. All right, now let's see how you go. So he started coming in faster, but he slowed down through those poles. So you still got to create energy to keep him going, and then no energy afterwards, because we don't want him to pace while he's doing this exercise. So you just want to bend, get him back to a walk, and then wait until he's maybe 5 feet in front of it. And then right now I would speed him up and then wave that stick so he keeps going, and then point that stick out in front of you to get him to bend, because the bending will keep him out of the pace, and then a little wiggle of the rope and breathing so he understands to come back to the walk. And I say walk, and then as I get closer to the poles, I'll say trot, and then I wave that stick, and then if he's cutting in, you poke it out. So you're doing quite good. It's just you're not driving him through those poles enough. But he's doing them well enough that then you can start, once you get that, and you can do that for a week or two, then you can add more poles and get more trotting steps out of him. Anytime he goes through there well, I would stop and reward him. So this is good. And then give him a nice scratch and a break, and then send him out again. So you're very kind to him. We just got to be a little clearer with your cues so he understands what to do. Starting again. And you're doing pretty well, but the rope is just a little bit loose. They will feel it, but if he's getting stuck, I would have turned my body more this way to wave that stick right at his neck, and that would have given you more pull on the rope just to help direct him better. He's getting it. And if that's the way you want it, then that's different. But I would try to get it more consistent and more finished. And then I would have had him slower and then sped right up in front of the poles. That was a good one. You could have stopped him there and rewarded him. The cantering is fine because cantering is more similar to a trot, and it's away from the pace. And teaching pacey horses to canter will help a lot with their gait. So if he canters afterwards, that's okay. And then just ask him to do it again. There, I would have just pointed your stick out. He cut the turn, but that's just your steering. Horses will always try to cheat because why do something harder if you don't have to? So that's okay. When it happens, you just make them do it again. And then here, I would have just waved that stick to keep them going more consistently. But it's getting there. The poles are helping a lot. You can see when he walks through there, it does help separate his legs. So even walking through those poles is going to help get him away from the pace. He doesn't look like a real hard pacing horse. So this one's of you riding. So what I noticed a lot, because I already watched the video some, is the hands are a little too high. You're trying to follow, even though it's a hackamore, you're trying to have a straight line from that hackamore up to your hand and up to your elbow. So I would lower your hands a couple of inches. It might help to do a little bit more of a live lesson. There, you're better. That's much better with your hands. Now it's shady and dark, so I can't see your legs and things of that nature so well. As you go to do the turn, if this is a turn on the forehand, you can sorry, the sun's hitting the video, but you can see how your elbows are sticking way out. That's because you have your hands too high. So if you're going to do a turn on the forehand, if that's what you're trying to do, I'd stop, get organized, and then a little right rein, and then a lot of right leg. But it's also important to use your eyes, look at the barn, look at the tree, and then look somewhere over here so the horse knows where to go. So if you watch your hands, they're too high, you're looking down a little bit too much. And so you want your hands here, they're really high. You want them way down here, not up here. We're not holding them up. We're just showing them what to do. So you want those hands lower. And again, that's the lights behind me, so let me shut those off. Now here we go. So he's got a nice trail walk. All his legs are moving independently. The really hard pacers, they pace when they're walking. So this is quite good. He has a very nice walk. His headset is fine. He was relaxed. There, his head's coming up a little too high, and he got more inversion there. Now, as you're coming back around, hands a little too high, so we want to lower them a couple inches. So it looks like you're speeding up to try to get the flat walk, but he starts moving his legs together, and then he changed speed. So again, hands way too high. That was a little bit too much leg, so he went past your flat walk and went right up into a pace. So better with your hands. And I know he pulled back on you, and then he went to step pacing. Now here he's more relaxed. He was good for a couple of steps, and then he changed his speed. Let's watch that one. This was the best of all of them, but you kind of just let him do his thing. And again, he's built downhill, so he just put his head down, and when you left him alone, he's like, this is good. And then he kind of just swung his legs, and then he got just a little heavier on his front end there. Now, what we want to try and do is be able to get that consistently, not when we're just letting him do what he wants. So we have to get a really good head down cue, get him to relax, and then we got to be able to adjust that head up and down to help with the gait. And then we got to get him to accept the pressure of your hackamore, or I think you might have a side pull on. I'll see as it gets closer, I think, in the next video. So it's really important that they do those things well so you can adjust them, because if they don't understand your cues, then you don't have tools in your toolbox. And when you're doing it, say, more naturally, you're trying to do it with a side pull or a hackamore, you can definitely do it. You can do it with a halter, but your riding skills need to be very good. You need to be very clear and very good with your timing to get them to do it and to understand. So we'll see how the next videos go, and then I'll give you a routine to do. So here you're trying to get his head down, which I'll show you a different way to do it. He's not completely understanding. And yes, it looks like you have a side pull. So with the side pulls, all your pressure is on their nose. If you have a bitless bridle like Dr. Cook's, it kind of hugs their head. If you have a hackamore, it's their nose and also their jaw. And the bosal is mostly on their nose. So again, the hard part is sometimes you have to put a lot of pressure on because they don't understand. So if you're going to use a side pull, which is fine, it's good to do the lateral flexion and vertical flexion on the ground with a halter. Get that really good. Then put the side pull on them and do the same thing. Do your lateral flexion. Get that really good with the side pull. Once they can do that, do your vertical flexion. And once they can do that really well from the ground, then do it up in the saddle. It'll be much easier. But he's not clear here. He's kind of confused. And then he walks away. And the hard part, you let him. Unless you asked him to do that, which I wouldn't have done because he didn't understand. And then we just walked away. So he's like, that's great. I just walk away when she pulls on me and then I get to keep going. So then he doesn't truly understand what to do. Now with your circles, I'd bring your right shoulder back a little bit more. So you're kind of turning your shoulders by twisting at your waist. There you're better. And more inside leg and a little bit more outside rein to guide him out so he doesn't cut in so much. Now, if he's drifting, it's fine to put the outer rein against him. But if he's not drifting, open it up to help your circle. There, your hands are way too high. So you want to lower your hands so it's a straight line from that side pull up to your elbow. See how high your right hand is? And then as you're making your circle, keep pressing with that inside leg. I'm going to stop it for a second. So I squeeze and relax on my inside rein when I make my circles. As I do that, I press with my inside leg. If that's not working, I press with my inside heel. So you're trying to do the rein and your leg at the exact same time. So the horse starts associating the bend with that leg. So in time, you won't have to use much rein. So you can just look where you're going and just guide them lightly with the rein, and then it'll be mostly leg and they'll bend better. I'm waiting to see what you're doing next. Okay, hands still a little high. Lift your chin up and bring your shoulders back a little bit more. And this might have been your leg yield. So not bad. I would turn sooner so you have more area to leg yield. Like I would turn probably at that first pull. So it gives you a lot more area to leg yield so over. Here you come again. On your turn, lean back, lower the hands, because both those things will help to balance your horse more. Leaning forward and raising those hands forward is going to pour more weight on his front end. So lower the hand. And then you might have to talk to the video next time because I wasn't sure. It looked like you were going to leg yield or do a shoulder in, but now you're bringing his shoulders out or his haunches in because sometimes it looks similar. So if you're going to do that turn and then bring his shoulders out or his haunches in, bring your shoulders parallel kind of with his shoulders a little bit more. There as you're turning, you're kind of looking down at the dirt. So make sure on all your turns you sit back and look over his ears. So here you'll see you're just a little off balance. You're kind of leaning to the inside, which is making it harder for him. Your shoulders are better here because they're following his shoulders. But don't try to keep your weight even in your buttocks there. And there he's got it. You just got to hold it another step or two. But there it looks like you're leaning to the left and you're falling forward, which is making it harder for his balance. So you want to lean back and keep a little bit more weight on your right. Here the hands look a little bit too high and wide to me. And I would turn your shoulders a little more to the right and try to keep your eyes up over his ears. Look in the direction you're going. So here you could I got to see which way you're turning him. So you could look off a little bit to the left, more weight on the right side, shoulders even, and lean back more with your upper body. He's trying, he's doing a pretty good job. We just got to get that finished more, but these are upper level movements. So we got to get the basics first, his head down, your circles better before, you know, working on these too hard. Okay, so I think this is your shoulder in. So what I would do is look off this direction, look across the diagonal, turn your shoulders as if you were going to go across the diagonal, because what's happening is his shoulders are going this way, your shoulders are going the opposite way. It makes it much harder for him. And then it looks like you're leaning forward. So you want to sit back, pretend you're coming across that diagonal, push him off the rail, keep the bend, and then push with this inside leg. Keep your eyes going this way. That way your shoulders will go this way. And it usually makes it much easier and a much lower hand. Your hands are way too high. They're getting a little better. And there when he's falling in, that's where you have to dig with your inside leg. But you also have to look up above his ears. Eyes make a big difference on the horse understanding what you want it to do. If you're doing it this direction, you're starting well. Your shoulders are a little in, but you had to push a little bit more with your outside leg, lower your hand, and then immediately go back to your inside leg. So the hands we got to fix, they're way too high. So this is you trying to get his head down, and you're holding pressure. He's not understanding, so I'm going to send you a video that shows a little bit more what you can do. And then he gets it down, but then he pulls the reins out of your hand. This is fine to have it start this way, but then we have to finish it, because when you're riding, you don't want his head down on the ground, especially if it's one that's built kind of high to low, like his hind quarter seems a little bit higher, because then he might get too heavy. So it's fine to start this way, but if we do the lateral flexion and vertical flexion, it'll be much easier. And once you get it so he understands to put his head down, then you're going to hold longer and not release until it's slightly down and tucked in, then release. Slightly down, tucked in, and then release. If he throws it way down, then you're going to hold, because we don't want it going way down here, but it's fine to start this way. So these are the things I would teach, and I'll send you videos to help you. And then again, a live lesson might help you more if you're able to do that. But I would work on lateral flexion and vertical flexion to get his head down, and I would get that very consistent. And so what you could do, again, is you can do it from the ground with the halter, then with your side pull, then do it from the saddle. And just work on that for a couple of rides, and then otherwise just let him walk around on a loose rein, walking around, like walking over poles, and working on your circles and leg yield. You can do all those things, but just do it at your trail walk. Once you can consistently get his head down and he's not pulling down on you, then what I would like you to do is walk around, and we're going to walk, stop, get his head down. Once you can do that consistently, then we're going to walk and try to keep his head down while you're walking. In the beginning, you might have to hold. And again, with the side pull, sometimes you got to hold a lot in the beginning until they understand. And then over time, they will get lighter and lighter. But again, that's why so many people use the bit, is just because the learning is faster and quicker. We can definitely do it with anything, but it might take a little extra time. So I'm just telling you that so you don't give up or think he's not getting it. It just takes a little longer. The better your timing and feel, the quicker they learn. The worse our timing and feel, it takes longer for the horse. They can throw their head. They can get very confused. So if he's throwing his head or yanking on you, it's a sign he's confused, and you might need to take a step back. But once we get his head down, and then we can walk stop with his head down, then you can start walking the circles and doing all those patterns, working on keeping his head down. Now, once we can do that, then what I would like to do is you do all your warm up, you can do all your maneuvers, and then I would set up, because this will help him a lot, a circle of poles like you see in my videos, where you set up the poles in a circle and you set them up at one at 12, one at 3, one at 6, and one at 9. Then what we start to do is try flat walking over those poles. So in your brain, you want to think, I just want a faster walk. As you start walking, you're trying to keep his head down and keep him bent, because the poles, the bending, and his head down are all things that will get him away from the pace. And then I would do that 5 minutes each direction, and then I would quit. And then what you're trying to do is each time you do it, get better and better. If in between the poles he is pacing, then add more poles, and I'll send you a video on that, and you'll end up with 8 poles. You can get the poles at Home Depot, but it looked like you have poles there. You want to get up to doing that 5 minutes each direction, keeping his head down, feeling him stretching out, lengthening his stride, and stepping over those poles. In between the poles, or anywhere, if he's getting pacey, just half halt, so squeeze and relax on the rein and slow him back down. The more we bend him, the more that suppling work will help him to get his gait, but we have to do it correctly and keep him balanced. So all we're trying first is trying to get that flat walk consistent. You see a lot of people do it on the road because it's easier, because the footing's consistent. The road doesn't change much, but our arenas do. So in the arena, we usually have to half halt more. We have to make sure we're riding really well and balanced in our body. And you might have to videotape and watch yourself, because you'll see a lot from your own videotapes, okay? But that's where I would start. I'll give you a routine, and then we can go from there. But very nice horse. You're a good rider. I just want to change some things. And then I think he's going to have a very nice gaits. We just got to build them from the bottom up.